Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome into the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. We got some interesting stuff to get to today.
Thursday Night Football.
Did I say our names already?
I don't even
My
think
name's
so.
Mark Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. I don't remember. We do have Thursday Night Football. Week 5.
Oh my goodness.
I still can't get over Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's very weird. Question: Brady signed on to be an analyst or a commentator for a network. Who the crap did he sign on with? Was it Fox?
I want to say it was Fox, yeah.
But is he gonna do like day games, or is this like a night thing?
I have no idea. I really don't.
Who does Sunday Night Football?
It's
that
Mike
Fox?
Tirico and,
And Chris Collinsworth. But what station?
NBC. Oh, you know what? Fox doesn't. Who's Fox's team right now? Like, who's their main guys? Because it was Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. But now it's probably going to be next year. It's going to be Tom Brady and whoever. That's going to be like their main group.
Interesting. Well, either way, I was just thinking about that the other day. Hearing Tom Brady in the booth is going to be wild.
Yeah, that's going to be really weird.
It's going to be wild. But anyway, we got Thursday Night Football. Al Michaels is weird to listen to on Thursday Night Football. I always expect to hear Chris Collinsworth every time he talks. And then I get Kirk Herbstreit.
I know. It's like you're watching college football.
Who's this guy?
Weird.
Yeah, very weird. But anyway, today we're going to talk about Thursday Night Football, preview the game between the Colts and the Denver Broncos. That's correct, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Just going to check with Rick every week for that one time I put the entirely wrong teams. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that game, go through some of the fantasy matchups, what we're going to do in those circumstances, and then we'll send you on your merry way. This show is pretty short usually, so before we do that, check out our website, fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, like and comment down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Thursday Night Football, Colts, Broncos. I've decided that I like Thursday Night Football.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you decided that.
Actually, I'll ask you this before we start this. There's a large contingent of people who hate Thursday Night Football. They think it's garbage. They think that the performances that you get on Thursday Night Football are bad, and because they're bad, there's no point in having it because players get injured, bad stuff happens, Tua breaks his neck, all kinds of bad things happen on Thursday Night Football. Fantasy football never looks good. It's hard to bet on. Just so many things.
Yeah.
I enjoy it because I like to watch football midway through the week instead of waiting all the way till Sunday.
Yeah. So
that's not why I like Thursday Night Football, though. There's another reason.
I get why people say that because, yeah, I mean, it is a short week, could cause injuries, and that is a concern. But I will never say no to more football. And it is in the middle of the week. It gives you something to watch on a Thursday night. And it lets you look forward to something during, Tuesday, Wednesday. You get to Thursday and you're like, oh, there's football tonight. And then you get the weekend.
Yep. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
But I was going to say I like Thursday Night Football because I get to watch teams that, some teams that I normally wouldn't watch.
Fair.
I've watched some Colts games, but haven't really thoroughly watched the Colts, so I'll get to see a full Colts game. I've watched too many Broncos games.
Me too.
So I don't necessarily like the Broncos, but yeah. So I like Thursday Night Football for that. But anyway, we got Colts at Broncos. Colts have been struggling 1-2-1 on the season. Broncos, what did they move to 3-1?
They lost this week. They're 2-2.
They did?
Yeah, the Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders knocked them off. Yeah, so 2-2 for the Denver Broncos. I think this is an important game for both teams, if any.
Yeah, the loser of this game is going to look real bad to start the year.
Yep. I think Broncos could get away with going 2-3. But the Colts cannot get away with going 1-3-1. That would be horrendous.
Yeah.
But
probably.
the over-under is 44.5, so that line could move a little bit, but I don't know. Like, I don't feel like this game is going to be an elite, high-scoring, blow the doors off this.
This is gonna be. I think this is gonna be a classic Thursday night game.
Yeah, where they just score. One team scores 10 points and one team scores 15, and then we're all freaking smashing the under.
Yep.
So should be an interesting game. We're gonna break down the Colts first.
Okay.
Because they're the road team. Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. Don't know what, I don't know how much ice he could actually be.
He looks like ice because he doesn't move.
Blows. Yo, Nick Foles is their backup quarterback? Ain't no way.
He is.
That's strange.
Get him out there.
But Matt Ryan shouldn't be in your starting lineups.
No, 100% no.
On the season, he's had some games for fantasy football, though, that have been pretty...
This week?
This week, he had a game. Did he play well? He had 20 points. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in our 5-point touchdown, he had 20 points.
Stupid. Why? How do I end up back in the league? I literally switched out of it.
So 18 points? That's still not awful, though.
Yeah, no. I mean, there has been some... Yeah, I mean, it's streamable if you don't have a quarterback. He's just not going to provide massive opportunity for your team on a week-to-week basis. But he's going up against Denver. So, like, this is not a week to stream Matt Ryan.
Not a good matchup at all.
So we'll move on because he kind of is lame. So the running back position is interesting. I really hope this game is not this boring, but Jonathan Taylor sustained an injury. And right now he's listed on Sleeper as questionable. They did say he has a chance to play on Thursday after tests on his ankle came back negative. The situation concerning Jonathan Taylor for me is like, normally I'm like, start your studs, but it's a Thursday night football game. If they activate him and they're ready to play him, I could see one of those weird games where you start him and he gets like 4 carries.
Oh, I know. I think though, like with a guy like Taylor, I agree with start studs. Even though sometimes, like I will play those random fill-in guys. You know, Jamal Williams, the Khalil Herberts.
Yeah.
But when you take a guy like Taylor, that's not even start your studs. He's the first overall pick. It's like Taylor and McCaffrey were the first 2 picks in the draft. I don't think there's any scenario where those guys are active that you bench them, unless they continue to suck all season. So if he's active, I would play him. If not, do you fire up Nate Hines? I mean,
I don't know. Hines is probably rostered. This is probably going to be a close game, and I don't know how much opportunity he really is going to get. The first 3 games of the season against Houston, Jacksonville, Kansas City, Naheem Hines had 10, 7, and 8. And he was getting a lot of target share through the air. 6 catches, 4 catches, 5 catches in the first 3 games. This past week, he had 3 total touches, 2 catches through the air for 3 yards. He was terrible against Tennessee. Denver's not any easier of a run defense, but I would imagine that Naheem Hines, I don't think he would get Jonathan Taylor workload on the ground. I think that would go to Deion Jackson. But I think that Naheem Hines would
get like 10 carries, though.
He'd probably get 10 carries and get most of the pass-catching work. So I do think that there is a realm where if you really, really badly needed a running back start this week in like your second flex and you didn't have any other options because everyone else is hurt or whatever, then Hines is not a bad play. But Denver is a tough matchup. And I don't know how excited I would be to roll Naheem Hines out there on a Thursday night game against Denver.
Yeah, that is a tough matchup.
In Denver, which is even worse.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, if Taylor's out, I would be okay with it because he will get a lot of targets. He'll probably get, the 6 targets he got in those couple weeks and maybe even more. And then, with like 10 carries. So he could see close to 20 touches. And if he does that, I could see him getting like 10, 11 fantasy points, even in a really hard matchup. So is a very, very low end RB2, super low end, like in the 25 to 20 range for running backs, maybe even 30. But I could see him being around there and get like 10, 11 fantasy points. So if you feel like you need that to start, go ahead, but not going out of your way to start him.
Yeah, agreed. I definitely feel like Jonathan Taylor is. It sounds like they're not concerned about the ankle injury that he sustained, so like I would expect him to play this week. But just keep an eye on the report for Jonathan Taylor as we go into the week and as we get closer to this game. Obviously, make sure he's not in your lineup. But if you're going to start him, just be cautious. Just be cautious. Wide receiver position. Michael Pittman, obvious start.
Yeah.
So far this season, he's had 27, 15, and 6, and
he does have Patrick Surtain on him this week.
He had 6 targets this week, his lowest target threshold of the season. But he had 13 and 9 in the first 2 games that he participated in. So, yes, he's got a tougher matchup for a cornerback there, but I mean, if he's going to get, 9 to 10 targets a game on a week-to-week basis, he's an efficient pass catcher for the most part. In the 2 games where he was targeted, 9 and 13 times, he had 9 catches in the 13-target game, 8 catches in the 9-target game. So he catches the balls that are thrown his way. There's definitely upside for Michael Pittman. I like him moving forward. He was one of our breakouts. And if that means anything, he's probably going to get hurt, considering that all of our breakouts have gotten hurt with season-ending injuries. I hope that doesn't happen because I love Michael Pittman. But against Denver, that is a really interesting question. Does he play well?
I wouldn't expect a monster week from him, but I still would start him. And coming off a bad week, maybe they try to get him involved more targets. It is a really hard matchup, though. I mean, the Broncos are probably top 5 in the league against wide receivers, and at least against passing offenses. And Patrick Surtain will be one-on-one with him, so not a great matchup, but I think you got to start him, and he's been good this season. So studs.
Paris Campbell is their second wide receiver. He hasn't. Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't exceeded more than 4 catches. 4 targets, I should say, in a game. This week he had 4 catches for 8 fantasy points with a 67% snap percentage. So Paris Campbell, at this point, if he's rostered on your team, you can safely drop him. If you
last week was his best week.
No, I know. I just don't. 4 targets is not wonderful. I mean, if you want to hold him, you can too.
No, last week against the Chiefs was the week where Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce were out. So I was like, oh, Paris Campbell, DFS, perfect. And he had 2 targets. So from that point on, never trusting Paris Campbell again.
Now we got a 6'3", 211-pound, 22-year-old rookie wide receiver that also happens to be white, which is interesting. That's different.
I know. You wouldn't expect that from his build.
Week 3 against Kansas City, he had 5 targets. Week 4, he had 6 targets. So he's only been playing about 45 to 50% of the snaps when he's out there, but he is getting targeted in the offense. So this is one of those guys that I actually think is like a good stashable player. For Thursday night, I don't think he's startable.
No.
Obviously. But I think as the season goes along, he's a good stashable player on your roster because if he's playing 45% of the snaps and he's getting 5 to 6 targets, if he was playing 80 or 90%, I could see him getting 8 to 10 targets. And I think what Paris Campbell's role is kind of what Alec Pierce is taking.
Yeah, and Pierce is also, I mean, kind of yeah and kind of no. Because
they play different roles.
Campbell
I just mean the
the
target share
guy,
that
right?
Campbell was.
The target share, yeah. Because Pierce is kind of a deep threat. And he's been pretty good. And I liked him pre-draft. I liked him, in dynasty leagues. I took him a lot in like the end of the second, early third round of rookie drafts. I do like him long term, but this week I'm not. He's going nowhere near my lineups against the Broncos.
Yeah, agreed. Mo Ali Cox had 26 fantasy points this past week on 6 targets.
I don't know where that came from.
Denver. Denver's actually been pretty bad against tight ends.
Isn't that usually how it is? Like a good defense who has shut down corners. the tight ends end up playing better because teams will throw to the tight end more. So
You could get some good targets from Amali Cox, but I'm not interested in starting him or playing those.
Yeah, super deep.
2 tight end
You need
leagues.
a tight end, maybe take a flyer on him, but I'm not going out of my way to play Amali Cox either.
Yeah. All right. There's the Colts. Any more thoughts on the Colts?
No, it'll be gross. I don't think they're getting a huge day. I mean, maybe if Taylor plays, they have a good offensive day, but
okay. All right, let's talk about the quarterback position for the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, obviously great when he's not terrible.
Obviously great when he's not terrible. Quote of the day.
But he's been terrible.
Yeah.
26 points this week, which is great. Positive direction for Russell Wilson people. I was listening to another fantasy podcast, and they were talking about how, there's some fantasy analysts out there saying Russell Wilson is droppable because he's been so bad. And the guy was like, man, if he was dropped in my league, like I would be like, okay, dropping him because he hasn't been good. But then I know if I put him out there that if I were me, I'd go out and pick him up.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if I saw him on the waiver wire. So that's just how bad he has been to start the season for fantasy football. That people, and these are trustworthy fantasy people who are just like done. They're out on Russell Wilson. He's not tradable. He's sucking away a roster spot if he's not startable. And you're just sitting there holding a guy who has basically no value. Now, Rick has tried to trade for Russ very many times. So I guess there's people in leagues that would try to trade for him, Rick. But Russ had 26 points this week. He looks better. The Denver Broncos offense looks better. This week he's going up against the Indianapolis Colts, who have kind of underperformed defensively on the season. So is this a guy you're looking to play this week?
I don't think he's going to have as good of a week than he did last week, but yeah, I'm starting Russ. I understand the concerns, and I was on that list, but I was trying to trade for him because I figured the offense will get better, especially the passing offense as the season goes on, and I think it will. Javante's injury does change the outlook of the offense as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But in good matchups, I'm okay with playing Russ. Against the Raiders, it was a very good matchup. I was trying to trade for him before that game so I could plug him in and start him, and he ended up having a big week. And against the Colts defense was supposed to be really good, but they haven't been good really this year. So I think it's another decent matchup. It is on Thursday night, so temper your expectations. Obviously, if you have a better, safer quarterback play, do that. But I'm willing to start Russ. I think he could be another low-end QB1, get you 20 fantasy points, 21 fantasy points, call it a day.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a startable player against the Colts this week. Hopefully they don't completely look like garbage. Like, this could be a bust week for him, honestly.
It could be. Yeah, it could be just a Thursday night
they played a night game, he didn't look great, and it's a Thursday night. So, but, hey, give it one final chance with Russ. We'll roll. Broncos country.
Yep. Let's ride.
Obviously, Javonte Williams toast. Blew his ACL out. Melvin Gordon will come in and play the lion's share of the carries. The question is, do they trade for, bring somebody in to play the secondary Melvin Gordon role? I would imagine that they're going to call up some old heads, some old guys. Todd Gurley's still out there if you want to take a look. He blows.
Oh, that could be a flyer.
But no, I think Mike Boone's going to be the secondary guy. I think he'll probably be the third down back / pass catching guy, and Melvin Gordon will get the lion's share of the carries. If you have Melvin Gordon, I feel okay saddling him up. No pun intended, Denver Broncos. Let's ride. I would not have a problem with playing Melvin Gordon this week. I think with the opportunity going back in his court, he could be an RB2 rest of the season.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Melvin Gordon's a good start. Really, rest of the season now. I mean, he's going to be. I'm not as high on him as I would have been for Javonte if he was by himself, but he'll still be very productive, and I'm okay with starting rest of the season. Yeah, I think RB2 is about a fair range for him.
Are you interested in Mike Boone at all?
I'm not trying to start Mike Boone, no.
Okay. Those are the running backs for the Denver Broncos. Moving to the wide receiver position. It's been interesting kind of seeing how this passing situation has worked out. Courtland Sutton has been the guy for the most part to start the season. I don't know if that's because of health or whatever, but he's had 11, 19, 17, and 16 to start the season in PPR. Very consistent with what he's bringing. Target share has been a little less consistent. He had 10 and 11 in week 2 and 3, but week 1 and 4 he had 7 targets.
There's an interesting theme with that, isn't there?
Yes. So the 2 games that Jerry Jeudy was available to play happened to be the games that
he played the whole game.
Yes, he played the whole game this time. He only had 5 targets, Jerry Jeudy, but he caught 53 yards, 1 touchdown, 15 fantasy points. He had 20 in week 1 when he played at a full capacity.
He also had I was watching that game, so he had like a 16-yard catch, I think, 15-yard catch down the sideline that got called back because of a holding.
Oh my God,
and I think he had another target that got called back.
Referees hate fun.
He would have had the same amount of targets as Sutton if not for the penalties.
Yeah, I was excited for an AJ Brown blow up week this week where he gets like 25 and
I know. I wanted Jeudy to get 20 plus so bad, and he wouldn't have done it, but he would have had a better week. He would have had like a 17, 18 point week.
But 20 and 15 in 2 fully played games where he had 90% of the snaps essentially.
Pretty good.
Week 1 and week 4. I'd like to see the target share increase.
Yeah.
Like looking at Russ's passing numbers early in the season, it looks very much like the same amount of opportunity he was getting in Seattle. And which makes me kind of concerned for Jerry Jeudy, like 6-7 targets a game. Let's say we average out 7 targets a game for both Jeudy and Sutton, like through a 17-game season. That's only 120 targets for either one of those guys, which I mean, I guess is what the pace would be.
That's not bad.
It's not horrible, but that reminds me very much of like what you were getting from Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. So, if Jerry Jeudy didn't get hurt, does Courtland Sutton continue to have that consistency? Honestly, I think this has been like Courtland Sutton fantasy points wise is ahead of Jerry Jeudy just because he hasn't been hurt.
For sure.
But on the season, if you just watch the games and you look at the numbers, they're split right down the middle.
Yeah, it feels like when both guys are healthy, they use them pretty equally. I think, again, though, and I said this last week before Jeudy had a decent week, but I think Sutton is probably the safer guy.
Yeah.
I think if anyone's going to have monster weeks, it's going to be Jeudy. Like, I feel like he could blow up in some weeks, but Sutton is going to be safe. He's going to get you
Sutton is Tyler
double-digit fantasy points.
And Jerry Jeudy.
Fantasy-wise, yes, but on the field, it's the opposite.
No, it's the opposite, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that works. But Sutton was, I remember in the offseason I wanted to draft both guys, and I ended up getting a lot more of Jeudy than I did Sutton. But if you did draft Sutton, he's pretty good. Like, he's what you wanted for a 4th-round wide receiver.
We were pegging the Jerry Jeudy breakout, which remains to be seen at this point.
No.
With the way Denver's offense has been, there really hasn't been anyone that you could be like, okay, this player is definitely going to break out.
Yeah.
So I'm in kind of this box where I'm like, we still don't even know. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Jerry Jeudy could go on. There is a very easy schedule after Indianapolis. They have Chargers, Jets, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Raiders, Panthers, Baltimore, Kansas City. I mean, this is just a freaking ease fest for Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
And Courtland Sutton. So we'll see. I mean, if both of them stay healthy, we'll see if there's a guy that emerges as the number 1. But for right now, it looks pretty split. Like the 2 games that Jerry Jeudy played, Courtland Sutton scored, I think it was 10. Yeah, week 1, he had 11 points against Seattle, and he had 16 points this week. So, if you just count the games that they played fully together, Jeudy has been the guy in terms of production. But we'll have to see as the season goes along. Now, both of these guys against Indianapolis, a little bit tougher of a play. I like them both in this matchup. I think Sutton at this point, you kind of have to roll with him on a week to week.
Yeah, you're probably starting him every week.
Jeudy is a guy that I think if you drafted him like in the 6th round, so there's a good shot that maybe not. Was he a 4th-round pick? I can't remember.
I think he was a 5th, but in some best ball formats, he was a 4th. I think he was a 5th.
I feel like he's a guy that you could definitely play based on matchup. where he isn't. Like, I have him in multiple leagues, and in those leagues, he's like been sitting on my bench on some weeks. So I think that, I mean, are you sliding both of these guys in your lineups this week, or are you just sticking with, one?
Sutton is probably a part of the core of your team. I don't think you're sitting Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
And then Judy, if you have like a pretty stacked team, and you don't really need to start Judy. You don't have to, but I'm okay with starting Jerry Judy this week at my flex or wide receiver too. We've really seen week 2 he got hurt in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So in the 3 games we've played, we've seen 2 good ones. So I'm okay with riding Judy out. A little nervous because it is Thursday night and it is kind of a tough matchup, but we'll see how it goes. I would still be okay with starting Jerry Judy in my flex.
Okay, yeah, I like them both too. Tight ends. Finally, we'll complete the show with the tight ends of the Denver Broncos. Albert Okwuegbunam, who is a freaking fantasy darling.
Is an absolute.
Do you remember me
horseshoe.
freaking out 7 months ago when people started saying Albert Okwuegbunam was a guy to target in dynasty leagues?
I bought way too much in the Broncos because I wasn't in on Albert but I was like okay with him just because of Russell Wilson being there and stuff. But man, he blows.
He only had 2% of the snaps this week, so I'm assuming there's an
he
injury.
wasn't even. I don't know.
Or maybe he just was taken straight out of the game.
I don't
2%.
remember seeing him getting hurt.
There was no injury. 2% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alberto is dead. A guy that has been kind of like, it was weird because week 1 we came out and there was this one rando white guy that was getting targeted. His name is Andrew Beck, and like he also has had a consistent 25% snap percentage, but hasn't been targeted since week 1. So I don't think there's a single tight end that you can play. If you have Albert Okwuegbunam on your team, you can drop him. I mean, that's about it for me at this point.
100% droppable. To be fair to him, though, why is he getting 2% of the snap? Was it like a
I don't know
doghouse thing? I
don't know what the Denver Broncos.
He definitely shouldn't be owned in rosters, though.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett made a joke, and Albert Okwuegbunam didn't laugh.
Yeah, and now he's benched for the season.
Meanwhile, Russ was like right in the front with
giggling
with his
his
apple sitting on his desk, ready to give it to the coach.
Great one, coach.
Great one, coach, with his little nerd glasses on.
Writes it down. He writes down the joke.
Yeah, to tell his kids.
Yeah. Oh boy.
All right, Denver Broncos, complete disaster. Who you got in this game?
Hey, by the way, I'm undefeated. Thursday Night Football stuff. I'm going with the Broncos.
Okay. I am going to go with the Denver Broncos as well. I'll just follow Rick until the end of the season.
Let's go. Let's ride it out. Broncos country.
Let's ride. We got starts and sits and trade targets. Stay tuned. See you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.